It's actually been scientifically proven by scientists. They used the Large Hadron Collider in order to determine that actually there is a relativistic effect when you observe paint dry versus when you don't observe it.
All right, let's talk about watches.
All right.
Hey Hodinkee, I've heard it's bad to shower with a water-resistant watch because the hot water is more likely than swimming to create condensation inside a metal watch case. Is this true?
Condensation, before I answer the question, it's actually one of my favorite words in the English language. There's just something so noble about its rhythm. Condensation. So condensation is an interesting phenomenon from a physics standpoint. It basically occurs when something like water vapor, for instance, goes from one state to a liquid state. And in order for this to happen, usually the temperature has to drop, and that's what causes the water vapor to condense. In a water-resistant watch, there's actually a test that they do at the factory called the condensation test. They will take a watch, or a bunch of watches, since they usually batch test these things, and they will immerse them in a tank of water at a certain pressure and at a certain temperature, all of which are specified by the brand's testing protocols. They will leave them in for a specified amount of time, and then they will take them out, and they will put a droplet of cold water on the crystal of each watch. And if you see condensation on the underside of the crystal, that means that water has actually penetrated the watch case. You really shouldn't see condensation inside a water-resistant watch after a shower or during a shower. And after a shower especially, you shouldn't see any unless the watch case has actually been compromised. So if you do see condensation on the inside of a watch case after a shower, it probably means there's something wrong with your gaskets and seals.
Hey Hodinkee, why do gold watch cases tend to be 18 karat gold? Wouldn't the cases be stronger with either 14 or 12 karat?
It's a really curious thing that you don't see 14 karat gold used more often in watch cases. And the reason, of course, is that 14 karat gold is stronger than 18 karat gold. It's not as soft. It's more scratch resistant. Carat in sort of jeweler's nomenclature, when you're talking about gold, carat refers to the percentage of pure gold that is in a particular gold alloy. So 24 karat gold is pure gold. Now, pure gold is very soft, very malleable. You can practically scratch it with a thumbnail. So it's completely unsuitable for jewelry and for watch cases. To overcome this, you add different metals, especially copper, to pure gold in order to make it harder and stronger and more scratch resistant. 14 karat gold is really the gold standard in jewelry making because of its ability to resist scratching and because it presents the best combination of luster and durability with strength. I think part of the reason why 18 karat gold might be more common in watch cases, though, is because a watch case is a fairly large surface area of gold in direct contact with the skin. And while it's true that gold does not corrode under normal circumstances, gold alloys can corrode. The copper especially can start to oxidize. So if you have a 14 karat gold case in contact with the skin, there's probably a better chance that the copper in it is going to start to oxidize than if it's an 18 karat gold case. And if there's a practical reason for preferring 18 karat gold in making watch cases, I think avoiding giving your customers a skin rash is probably a pretty good one.
Hey Hodinkee, I've read about the NASA watch trials, but still don't know how an Omega Speedmaster moon watch works in the absence of gravity. Maybe I'm missing something, but isn't gravity a requirement for a manual or automatic movement to run?
You would think so, especially in the case of an automatic movement where it's the movement of the rotor which winds the mainspring and kind of keeps the watch running. But if you stop and think about it, a mechanical watch is powered by the mainspring. And the power for the mainspring goes through a kinetic chain, which is the gear train, all the way to the escape wheel, and then in a lever watch, the lever, and then the balance. So at no point is gravity really required in order for the watch to run. And in fact, watchmakers have spent a lot of time over the centuries trying to figure out how to counteract the negative effect that gravity can have on the precision of a watch as it shifts positions. The automatic winding watch is a more interesting question because intuitively you would definitely think that a self-winding watch wouldn't work in zero gravity, or I should say, because I'm sure somebody's going to catch me on this, microgravity. Technically what you have in some place like the International Space Station is a microgravity environment, not a zero gravity environment. But it turns out that while there's no weight of an object in a microgravity environment, there is still inertia. So inertia doesn't magically disappear just because the force of gravity disappears. And the inertia of the rotor will cause it to move and start to wind the mainspring with any physical displacement of the watch. So if you start to wave your arm around and it's a self-winding watch, even if you're in a microgravity environment, the rotor's still going to move, the watch is still going to wind.
Hey, Hodinkee. Given the explosion of watch enthusiasm over the past several years and the resulting changes in the market, what aspects make you the most proud to be part of this expanding horological universe, and what worries you the most?
You know, when I got interested in watches longer ago than I would like to remember, there really was no watch internet to speak of, and watches were a very, very niche hobby. The watch magazines, to the extent that they existed, were on the bottom back of the magazine racks next to the doll collecting and the model railroading magazines. And there's been an absolute explosion since then. Watches are part of the general cultural discourse. They're almost a de rigueur accessory. People talk about them, people desire them, people write about them to an extent that I never thought that I would see happen in my entire professional career. The things that worry me are two fairly specific things. The first is that there is so much discussion of prices, pricing, value, auction records, street price versus retail price. I feel like that it has risen to a deafening clamor that really makes it hard to have any other kind of conversation about watches. The second thing that worries me is that I feel like watch enthusiasts would do well to understand the number of different levels on which you can understand and appreciate a watch. I mean, watches can be appreciated as design objects, they can be appreciated for their mechanisms and engineering, they can be appreciated for very, very specific traditional crafts like movement finishing, and all of those things are really part of what makes watchmaking and watches interesting to write about, talk about, and think about. And I've been doing it semi-professionally and professionally for at least 2 decades. And I'm not tired of doing it because you really never come to the end of things to learn, things to observe, and things to say. From a practical standpoint, I think that becoming better educated in general, all of us becoming better educated consumers, I think it buys us some insurance. It makes it possible for us to understand what we're getting for our money, especially as prices keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again. That's the show. It's been terrific as always, answering some of your questions, so please keep them coming. My producer just told me that I don't have to say like and subscribe this time. It feels it's getting kind of repetitious, so let's just take that as read.